I'd like to introduce you to Kathy Sindoni, Certified Legal Nurse Consultant. And Kathy, you've been a Certified Legal Nurse Consultant since 2010. And one of the things you say is that it's one of the best decisions you've ever made and that it's been a game changer for you. In what way?
So many ways. I think first and foremost, though, is just we've all lived, all of us who are nurses know what it's like to live the life of a nurse. And, I too spent many years in the trenches and, I've done my time and I know what that feels like. I enjoyed those years, but it's really nice at this point in my life to have, just a little bit of, decision making and ability, a little bit of control over my schedule, how getting that work-life balance that I'm looking for. Still being challenged, but being able to, at this point in my life, to live a nice balanced life.
Last year, you earned almost $300,000 in revenue, and you said that you deliberately chose not to grow your business, yet it was still growing, okay? So does this kind of go with that balance that you're trying to strive for?
That got challenging. That got a little bit challenging. That was, the business keeps growing. And though I haven't intentionally tried to grow it, I'm also not holding it back. I'm kind of letting it take its shape, which I've really done since the beginning. And, we've spoken before that I kind of took a little bit different path. I didn't dive headlong into CLNC work. I actually built it up while I was building up industry consulting at the same time. And now in the last few years in particular, assisted living industry litigation is really escalating. And the two, and I long suspected the two would come together really nicely eventually, and they did. And now I'm seeing a lot of litigation, in our area specifically, so I can keep the cases in my area of expertise and do some CLNC work coupled with industry consulting, and they've come together beautifully.
Fantastic.
So that's been, the two have both grown, and I did actually bring someone else on this past year. I also have some subcontractors I work with, and I actually just did my first subcontracting for another CLNC group, which was kind of fun and different.
Congratulations. You mentioned that you kind of developed yourself as an industry leader, and that's in assisted living. And actually that makes sense, right? Attorneys want someone who's knowledgeable about the specialty that's being litigated. So it makes complete sense. How did you consciously develop yourself as an industry leader?
My path was, of course, I'd been in the industry in New York State as an administrator and case manager for a number of years, and I worked very closely with one of the trade associations. And we had a very close relationship. I'd been speaking at their conferences for a number of years, and the director of that association, when I left, I set out to leave assisted living altogether and completely change course. And she convinced me that we really needed consultants who had been in the field and in the trenches, so to speak. Most of the consultants come from, retired DOHers and, attorneys often. Very few have actually been in the field, working in the front lines. And little by little, she started sending me people. While I was trying to build up my CLNC business, she started sending me operators, of facilities, things like that, attorneys sometimes, for a variety of different projects. So that just sort of took its own shape, and I continued to work on various CLNC cases. Back then I was doing a variety of types of cases. And then as the industry consulting built up, I decided to just reserve the CLNC work specifically for assisted living.
Okay, so that is different from many consultants who take on a variety of cases. But again, because you've built yourself as an industry leader, it's kind of natural that you would be more involved in litigation that relates to your specific specialty. How would you say that becoming an industry leader has contributed to your CLNC business? For example, does it make it easier for attorneys to know who you are?
Definitely. I really specialize in New York State regulations, so I'm very, very much in a very specific specialty in a very specific state. So my audience is primarily New York State, although I do get some cases out of state, particularly with the legal work. Perfect example, this week, I just picked up a case with a group of attorneys helping an operator with COVID-related issues. And right now they're related to the Department of Health, and I will be involved as a consultant doing more programming and industry consulting work, but along with the attorney in, helping them get their programming correct and kind of helping them to figure out what went wrong and where they can improve, but with the idea that we know this is coming to most likely some legal action in the future, either with the Department of Health in terms of, contesting violations, things like that. And then hopefully not any kind of, civil litigation. So I'm already, positioned and working with that attorney and that operator and really getting to know their program. So now I'm in there for, both avenues, which is really nice, very helpful.
Yeah, that's great. I understand you're also involved in another COVID-19 case.
Yes, I did get involved with a case several months ago. So in the early part of the initial onset of COVID, working with, in this case, it was seeking an injunction against an operator related to COVID measures and containment.
Okay. All right. Well, do you anticipate with assisted living that you're going to be involved in more cases that are COVID related?
It's possible. It's definitely possible. That's two so far, and I don't, as you said, I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
No. Well, I like the way you said that it was interesting to be involved in litigation that really is going to be historical and monumental. So, congratulations. Yeah. None of us like the fact that we're going to be having these cases, obviously, but I think it's fantastic, again, that you are an industry leader and will know how to guide these attorneys in these cases, both plaintiff or defense. I understand that you don't really do a lot of marketing, that, again, because you've established yourself as kind of an expert in your industry, that attorneys find you. Obviously, being an industry expert is part of why you're successful, but what other characteristics would you attribute to your success?
I think that, my entire career I've had very high standards and very good attention to detail. So I think that makes a big difference. And, I'm very committed to trying to make sure that I put out a really good product and that I'm able to truly give the attorneys something useful. And I have to say, the attorneys I've worked with have been fantastic. I was a little bit afraid of, in the beginning it's a little intimidating to set out to work with attorneys as a nurse who's probably, not accustomed to working with attorneys. It's been a really positive experience for me.
Great. That's great to hear. I always enjoy hearing that. And do they give you positive feedback?
They do. And they've been incredibly helpful. I think I was coming into it expecting that somehow it was going to be, just a difficult atmosphere when working with attorneys, that everything would be a little bit different than what maybe we're used to. Although I guess we're conditioned to doctors in the hospital, I guess we should be pretty conditioned to tough personalities, right? But I was actually very pleasantly surprised at how helpful and kind and generous the attorneys have been. And that was really nice for me to see, because I think there was a little bit of intimidation around that in my early years.
Sure. And do they refer you to their other colleagues?
They do. Actually, that is really starting to happen now, where my name is getting passed around within a firm that has, multiple offices, and I'm working with, well established with one attorney who now is passing my name on to a colleague in another part of the state. So that's really starting to happen these last few years in particular.
Very good.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting for sure. It's always nice when the business comes to you. That's right.
Right.
You shared that the National Alliance of Certified Legal Nurse Consultants has also been helpful for your business. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always, as I said, I started off in the industry consulting with one of the trade associations. And I think, any type of association with others who are doing the same thing you're doing, and that networking and outreach, people communicating for a variety of different things, see questions coming through, and sometimes just helping each other out. And certainly I've had inquiries. The resources that are available through the association are tremendously helpful. And of course, the ongoing education is really just keeps me fresh. And
Kathy, what is your definition of success?
for me, I feel like I'm living it. Building a business, building my own business, working for myself has been interesting. It was never something I actually aspired to for most of my career, until suddenly it became a possibility, and all of a sudden I found myself an entrepreneur and never really set out to be one. The freedom that goes along with that is just, it's hard to describe what that feels like. And especially right now, when so many people are struggling during COVID, and having the work that I can do from home remotely, and knowing that I'm secure and can stay. It was difficult because, as I said, we had our peak year last year, and things were really progressing beautifully. And of course, like everyone, COVID was a big pivot. But I still had that CLNC work and a lot of industry consulting work that I could do remotely. And so I've been fine. I've been able to weather this storm, and I'm sure we'll get back to growing again once we get through this. So
Great.
This is success to me, is making a nice living, an excellent work-life balance, doing something you really enjoy that still challenges you, but gives you time to live your life. It's all of those things.
Doesn't get better than that. Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.